noted, investigators anticipate that the debris now being recovered will yield answers to many of the lingering questions about the Columbia disaster. The location of debris, for example, could offer clues to the sequence of destruction. Hundreds of investigators are combing miles of fields, lakes, woods, and developed areas in 2 states as part of their search. And CNN's Patty Davis has that story.
The debris collection picking up steam as hundreds of people search for pieces of the shuttle as well as human remains over 28,000 square miles, scouring remote areas by 4-wheel drive and horseback. A key question is whether the tiles broke off, allowing extreme heat to penetrate the shuttle's structure. Since the shuttle's tiles are numbered, investigators might be able to piece together when they broke off if they did, and that could prove revealing.
I do know that we found tile in Fort Worth. And so the fact that we found a tile in the Fort Worth area, largely upstream of the debris field, may be significant.
That could indicate the tiles started falling off before the shuttle began to break up.
We want to get every last shred of evidence, whether it be documentation, whether it be witness statements, whether it be physical evidence that may have fallen to the ground.
Much of that evidence may have vaporized in the sky and could hamper the goal of reconstructing the shuttle. What evidence did make it to the ground, recovery teams are carefully mapping using global positioning satellites. The FAA has provided radar from the time of the accident to help locate debris.
By having precise locations of pieces and where those pieces actually came from on the shuttle, they'll be able to literally make them jump back up in the sky and put back into their place, and that tells you a lot.
The debris will be photographed, bagged, cataloged, and taken to Barksdale Air Force Base and Carswell Air Force Base. Meanwhile, more remains of the astronauts have been recovered. They're brought here for examination by pathologists and specialists in DNA analysis. The first remains arrived in 2 caskets received by a full military honor guard. Patty Davis, CNN, Barksdale Air Force Base, Louisiana.
As the nation mourns the loss of the 7 men and women aboard Columbia, many of us are wondering, could NASA have done anything to save their lives? Could there have been a rescue attempt? Joining us, 3 men who know firsthand the dangers of space travel. Former astronaut Guy Gardner, thank you for being with us here, and Rick Searfoss, and former NASA scientist Michael Wiskirchen. Thank you so much, all 3 of you, for being with us. Guy, since I have you here, and since Miles was explaining the intricacies of what the investigators are going through, I wanted you to explain it just one more time, because I think it doesn't hurt to describe it one more time. Now, investigators are assuming, only assuming at this point, that the problem was the external fuel tank. Can you explain what happened? The foam fell off on liftoff.
Sure. The external fuel tank, the big orange tank, that orange is actually the insulation foam that insulates the liquid oxygen and liquid hydrogen inside. During launch, we've seen the videos, a chunk of that foam insulation came off the tank forward of underneath the wing of the shuttle and impacted the bottom of the space shuttle's wing. When the analysis was done, they thought that would not have damaged the tile significantly, and now they're suspecting that it did.
All right, so let's listen to let me get his title just correct. The NASA flight director, Leroy Cain. Actually, I don't think we have this on tape. It's a graphic in which I will read what he said. He said this about the loss of tiles and the impact on re-entry. He said, engineers and analysts took a very thorough look at the situation with the tile on the left wing, and we have no concerns, and therefore we haven't changed anything with respect to our trajectory design.
Right.
So that means he was terribly incorrect.
If it turns out that the foam did cause the tile damage, then that analysis was incorrect. That's right, Connie.
All right. So this is actually quite disturbing in my mind, is it not to you?
Well, it means that there's a basic flaw in the way we attach the foam to the external tank that needs to be fixed, similar to the initial tiles being attached to the Space Shuttle Columbia before its first flight, and they had to fix that problem. Fortunately, that was discovered before it was launched into space.
All right. Let's get to whether or not they could be rescued. Rick, a question for you.
Yeah.
Would it have been possible for another shuttle to have gone up and saved these astronauts?
No, unfortunately, Connie, as much as we would all have loved to have had that option, it's just not physically possible. with a vehicle not out on the launch pad, with the time it takes just to prepare it to launch, it was physically not possible to go do that. And that's an accepted, understood thing by anyone who goes out to a launch, the astronauts as well as the whole technical community, that once you're up there, you're on your own in essence, along with the support from the ground technically, but rescue option is just not viable.
Michael, could the astronauts have gotten into orbit so that they could get to the International Space Station and get safe there?
I'm not sure that was possible. I haven't seen the exact orbit and the orbit calculations that go into that, and whether the Columbia was into an orbit that could actually be modified to reach the space station. So until those calculations be done, I'd have no idea whether there'd be enough fuel on